everyone, and welcome to Call It What You Want, your best friend that's just getting into soccer's new favorite podcast about the beautiful game. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside the Chuck and the Wagon, Charlie Davies, and eventually Jesse, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, Marsch, will be joining us as well. Apparently he's taking meetings. I don't know what that means, but we'll ask him when he gets on. And we are absolutely buzzing to get into today's show because we have a lot to talk about, like the Champions League and Europa League draws and what that means for our fellow Americans. We'll discuss Major League Soccer's new rules and their decision to not play in the U.S. Open Cup next season and for the foreseeable future. And, of course, we'll recap the stand-up performances or not-so-stand-up performances from our national team player pool this past weekend. But first, we know that this sport is known by many names, Chuck, around the world: football, calcio, soccer, fuchi ball. So as we do, to start off every show, we're going to play a little game. In our Call It What You Want word of the day. So, Chuck, you're doing this by yourself because Jesse, maybe he's a little scared to do this one. I don't know. But which language / country calls the beautiful game Fana Poikiri? Fana Poikiri.
Ooh.
Like, where are you thinking? Where are you feeling? Fana Poikiri. I'm doing my best here.
Okay. So I would have said Finland before if you didn't do that last time. I'm going to go with, it's a good one.
Fana Poikiri. Fana Poikiri.
You
want a clue? You want a clue? No, actually, I'm going to let you guess first, and then I'll give you a clue.
All right. Continent. Is it on the continent of Africa?
It is not.
It is not. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Singapore.
Okay. Singapore. I think you're in a nice area of the world.
Tibet, like around there.
No, not Tibet.
No?
Not
Okay.
Tibet. First clue: this language is spoken in a country whose men's team has qualified for 2 World Cups, 1982 and 2010.
Ooh, New Zealand.
Yeah, he got it. Everybody after the first clue. Yes.
Let's go.
Okay, they actually speak this language. It's Maori. So
Okay.
that's congratulations.
I was heading in that direction. You knew where I was going.
You were close. I mean, Singapore,
Okay.
I was like, all right, you're
okay.
you're closer than Africa.
I'm
That's
getting out
absolutely
there. Yeah.
The second clue for everybody that's playing at home, the same national team was the only team to not lose a game at the 2010 World Cup, which I think they had 3-0 draw. So shout out to the Kiwis for that.
Shout out to the All Blacks.
But Fana Poikiri is how they pronounce the beautiful game, soccer, football, whatever you want to call it. Yes. All right, let's get into the Champions League draw, the Europa League draw. But let's start with the Champions League because it's one of my favorite competitions in the world. And if you haven't been to a Champions League game, I highly suggest that you do that. I will say, though, Chuck, when I go down to South America, and I've seen a couple Copa Libertadores games, which is the Champions League of South America, it is ridiculous. And I kind of lean towards the environment of a Copa Libertadores game over a Champions League game. I'm just saying. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time. Let's get into the Champions League draw because there are 4 Americans playing in this one, Chuck. 3 of them play for PSV: Serginho Dest, Malik, Tillman, Ricardo Pepi, and Gio Reyna plays for Borussia Dortmund. So I'm like, okay, sweet. I can't wait to see who these 2 teams play. Well, guess what, everyone? They're playing each other. PSV is taking on Borussia Dortmund, which I guess the silver lining, Chuck, is that we are going to have at least one American in the Champions League quarterfinals this upcoming season.
You got that right. Although, if Dortmund do beat PSV, I'm not so sure that Gio Reyna is still there.
That's true.
It's been that type of season for Gio Reyna where he just can't get minutes and consistent minutes, and he's healthy at the moment for a stretch of time. So, as you do remember, after the last match in Champions League, there was an argument you could see with Hummels and Terzic after the game. He was clearly not happy.
Right.
I wouldn't be happy either if I was Gio Reyna. The team is in a bad run of form, yet I'm not playing. I'm not getting minutes. And it seems like they've moved off of playing Gio in the wide areas. So like a Jamie Bino Gittins is preferred over Gio Reyna. And I get that because Gio, that's not his long-term position. He's not a winger. Right. He's not going to be burning down the end lines just because his hamstrings, I don't feel that he needs to open up that way. He doesn't have pace anyways like that. But what he does have is that creativity. He belongs in the middle of the park. He's a central player. He is more of a creator in the final third. He can score goals, create goals. And so I'm a little shocked that he hasn't been given more of a run in that advanced midfield role with Dortmund. And I know Marco Reus is there.
Well, Julian Brandt is another one.
He can also play there out wide. And Julian Brandt can also play in different positions or with him, right? So depending on the opponent, maybe you're not playing with two more defensive midfielders and only 1 10. Maybe it's 2 10s, right? But either way, it is concerning that Gio Reyna is not getting minutes. And it's concerning that a number of U.S. men's national team players are not playing, with their clubs as the main guy or getting a majority of the minutes.
Yeah, what's interesting about Brandt and Gio in particular is I felt like they were really neck and neck for a while when Gio was healthy and really pushing to get into the first team and stay there, right? Maintaining that place. And then Brandt, I don't know what happens, but that dude just took it to the next level, and Gio, or maybe just took advantage of his opportunities when Gio was hurt. And he's the best player on Dortmund when healthy. He's got 4 goals and 7 assists this season, and that type of production. He plays the number 10 spot. He's got Marco Reus and Bino Gittins on either side. They play right underneath the striker for Dortmund, whoever they're rolling out up top. Fulkrug, you got Mullen as well. Adeyemi can play up there too. I mean, there's just so many options for Dortmund that just feel a little bit more exciting. And I don't say exciting sounds like the wrong word, because we know that Gio can provide excitement. It's more, if I'm a coach, if I'm Edin Terzic, can I trust this player? And I don't know if he's got that same type of trust. So I'm glad you brought up the fact that he might not even be there with Dortmund, because there's a transfer window that's happening before these games kick off, which could impact a lot of these teams in terms of can they strengthen in the January transfer window and make their team a little bit better. So it's going to be really interesting to see. And PSV has been excellent, but can they maintain that form that they're currently in 2 months, 3 months time? So that's going to be very, very interesting. All right, we're going to roll
Jimmy,
through.
Before you even go there, I would just say, so we knew that when Erling Haaland was leading the line for Dortmund, that him and Gio Reyna had a great partnership. They were always looking for each other. And then it seemed like injuries took him out of the equation, and it gives other players an opportunity. And we know that if you get injured, you're always giving either a young player or a player that you've been beating out for that position an opportunity to reclaim that spot or reclaim those minutes or trust within the manager. And it seems like Bino Gittins, Marco Reus, Julian Brandt, but also you could sit Gio in I think a more deep lying 8 role where Ozcan or Emre Can play, because they don't necessarily you could, but he's not getting a sniff, which is crazy to me, which means it has to be more than just, hey, I've been healthy, I've been unfit, I've been really unlucky, but I've shown my quality and I'm talented. It's got to be more than I'm not fit enough, or you don't trust me to stay healthy. It's got to be more than that, especially after the, confrontation we saw after the last match.
Okay, so let's do quick predictions then, Chuck. Dortmund versus PSV over 2 legs. Who do you like in that? Right now, I'll say PSV, not because Dortmund are winless in their last 5, but I just feel like PSV under Peter Bosz have already established an identity that's proving to work, whereas Dortmund seems to be a little bit more up and down. Obviously, that can change. There's a lot of time between now and then. But I got PSV over 2 legs. I think they could do something here. It'll be close, of course, but of course, the Dortmund team can be. I mean, they got through the group of death, so you have to respect that as well. Where are you saying on these two?
Dortmund played a different style, and they play with a different intensity than they do in the Bundesliga. So given that, I think Dortmund are going to be extremely tough to beat in 2 legs, but I'm unconvinced by this Dortmund side. And if anything, this PSV team is full of belief, full of young, talented players. I think beating Sevilla, tying Arsenal in the last group stage match, they beat Lens. I think they've only continued to grow, and that they're ready for this challenge. So if there was an upset, I wouldn't be surprised if PSV beat Dortmund. But if you're going to say who the favorites to come out of this knockout stage match, I would say Dortmund over 2 legs. But yes. I mean, you can't count out PSV because they are flying.
It feels like a coin flip
Yeah.
right now. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see what kind of moves are made, if any, in the January transfer window, especially as it pertains to one Giovanni Reyna. All right, very quickly on AC Milan. They dropped down into the Europa League after finishing third in the group of death in the Champions League. They're taking on Rennes. Now, Rafael Leao, their number 10, who is arguably their best player, came out after they got knocked into the Europa League and said, our club has actually never won this competition before, so we're going to go for it, which I really appreciate that mindset. That's a very positive way of spinning.
You better
that
be.
was taking it. Yeah, so they're going for it. They're taking on Rennes in the Europa League playoff. This is the round, for everybody that doesn't know, where the third place teams of the Champions League group stages take on the second place teams that finish in the group in the Europa League, and then whoever wins those takes on the first place team. So the first place teams in the Europa League have somewhat of a bye into the next round. But this is going to be good. Milan versus Rennes. I think that Milan have more than enough, and they looked excellent against Monza this past weekend to run Rennes ragged. But this Milan team under Pioli also, Chuck, does have a tendency to underperform and sometimes play to the level of their competition. So we'll obviously get into that and a little bit more as we get closer to that particular competition. But we're going to take our first break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, we're going to recap Americans abroad, who did well and who didn't do so well. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad, alongside the Chuck and the Wagon, Charlie Davies, and Mr. Stay Puft Marshmallow Man himself, Jesse Marsch is here, joining us. Jesse, I don't know where you are, but blink 3 times if you're in trouble, because that backdrop is a little plain. Jesse, good to see you. How you doing?
Is that what you're like? Okay. No, good to be here, guys. Good to be here.
All right, we're going to get into Americans abroad. Obviously, some of our players in our national team player pool had good weekends, and maybe 1 or 2 did not have that great of weekends. The notable results: Nottingham Forest, led by Matt Turner between the sticks, lost at home 2-0 to Tottenham Hotspur. Matt Turner may or may not have made a mistake on that second goal. Genoa with a big, surprising 1-1 draw with Juve. We saw that Weston McKennie continuing to play in different positions and being effective. Man City 2-2 with Crystal Palace. That was interesting. Chris Richards got the start in that one. AZ Alkmaar, you got Georgi Mihalovic, who was on the receiving end of a 4-0 beatdown from PSV. Serginho Dest scored in that one. Malik Tillman set up a penalty and had a great assist as well on Dest's goal. And then Le Havre beat Nice 3-0. Emmanuel Sabbi scored a brace, his first Liga goal. It's very exciting. Chuck, I'm going to come to you as our resident number 9. Who really stood out for you in our national team player pool this past weekend?
Performance of the weekend is goes to Emmanuel Sabbi for me. This is obviously his first 2 goals in Liga on this season. He's 25. He'll actually turn 26 on Christmas Eve, which is Sunday. But he got 65 minutes, scored a brace. His team, Le Havre, is in the middle of Liga, and they beat a notable team in Nice, who are third in Liga. So I think it's a great start for him. You're trying to get yourself going with these performances. You score a brace as an attacking player. You hope that that's going to be the foundation for you to kind of build off of and start getting more minutes, more starts. But for an American playing abroad, I think that's a notable result from the young winger.
I would say very notable. Scoring 2 goals in any competition, especially the way that he took them. One of those goals was excellent. I'm going to go with Malik Tillman, though. One of the things I liked about Malik Tillman, and Jesse, you can kind of build off of this when I throw the mic over to you, are the little things that Tillman are doing in the game. When I was watching this one in the first 2 minutes, he was already he was switched on in a way that I thought was really impressive. Finding himself in good spots, pressuring the ball, and then when he gets the ball, quickly looking for Luke de Jong, the number 9 for PSV and the captain, who is starting over Ricardo Pepi, unfortunately, but he's pretty good. But just trying to find those entry passes into their big guy, getting it back, and then trying to start the game from there. And then when he created the penalty, it was just him being switched on, reading a bad back pass by AZ Alkmaar, and he gets there before the goalkeeper does. He gets brought down, and it's a penalty. And then he sets up, nice turn in midfield, which gives him the space to find a Serginho Dest, who has a well-timed run when he's bombing forward, and Dest gets it out of his feet and scores a very nice goal with his left foot. But these little things that I like about Tillman that I'm seeing that I want to see him do more when he plays for the national team, where he's a little bit more advanced, and I guess he'd be competing with Gio Reyna in this particular area of the field. But can you find Balogun in those pockets? Can you find those little 1-2s that I think can really unlock a lot of defenses? So really impressed with Tillman. Obviously getting those numbers, goals and assists, obviously are an end result of making good soccer decisions. But it's the little things that I really love seeing in his game that I think could elevate his standing within the national team. But Jesse, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I like that he can play on the wing on the left or the right. He can play interior as the 10 on the left or the right. So his flexibility and the way he fits into the game wherever they play him, he's obviously performing at a very high level right now, and finding a lot of these little moments where he can get away from a defender and then slotting balls to guys running through really dangerous passes, right? He did it in Champions League and now against Arsenal, and now obviously in this game against Lamar, he was quite good. So, yeah, I mean, I think he has a big ceiling. I think that his flexibility, along with his athleticism, his ability to press and run, his cleverness with the ball, his technical ability, he's really got a full package of talent. And I think that the more that he continues to integrate within the national team, he's going to become a big player.
What's funny is that I think of Tillman being older than Gio Reyna, but they're actually the same age. They're both 21 years old. So we'll see who can fight to get those valuable minutes for the national team. Now, we talked about some standout performances, me and Chuck here, Jesse, but I think there's one that you want to talk about that maybe it's not so standout. Who's your most notable performance this past weekend?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Matt Turner has a tough one on the second goal. I actually thought up until that he was having a good match and looked really stable. Sometimes for me, Forrest was playing the ball backwards unnecessarily, where they would win balls and they would have, and of course, then Tottenham was counter-pressing and putting a little bit of pressure on them. But they, the defenders were too relaxed often in just playing the ball backwards and sometimes putting Turner in a difficult spot. Obviously, he makes a mistake. First on the distribution, when he goes to clear the ball, it goes right to Kulusevski. And then, when Kulusevski hits the shot, it kind of goes through his arms. But at that moment, Turner, I think, was also feeling the pressure of making that the first mistake. So, and you have to ask yourself a little bit, is this a little bit to do with, okay, we start with Turner, then we make a change, then we put him back in. This is always a little bit of the trouble that you can get into as a manager when you're messing around with the goalkeeper position a little bit too much. So, I felt bad for Turner. It was obviously a mistake for the second goal, and it was a shame because I thought he was in the match in a good way up until that moment.
Okay, so what would you do as a manager in this particular position then, Jesse? Do you just continue to stick with Matt Turner? Because if you don't, you could lose him for a period of time. Now, of course,
mind you, the notable investment you made in signing Matt Turner as your one. Right. So you've kind of put your neck on the line to say, okay, this is the guy that we're going to go with. And all of a sudden, they had a tough schedule to begin with. And he hung in there for a while. Then after the 3-0 loss to Liverpool, he made the big mistake on the third goal coming out far, the miscommunication with the center back. He slips. Salah scores in an empty goal. They bench him for about 6 matches. He comes back in because the backup keeper did no better, actually was worse. And now here he is. He makes that huge save on Sonny, and probably the 6th minute of the match, you're like, okay, this is what they needed. Big moment for him. He makes the save. But then I feel like that cross, Richarlison just had made a great run, and I think Turner took the wrong angle. It put him off a little bit. And then you see, like Jesse said, you're Nottingham Forest. You're not building out of the back. Get out of here with that. You don't have the team to build out of the back. You're not playing through pressure in that way. Definitely not consistently, maybe here and there. But you're down. Don't play back to Turner. And you play back to his right foot in a way that he can't take it first touch. He's getting pressure. He comes across his body. Yes, it's a poor clearance. The distribution is bad. But he's not being helped in any way. And then obviously it just compounds when Kulusevski scores. And then you see the reaction from Matt Turner, which means signals to the team and the whole stadium that goal is on me. That's my mistake. And I feel like that highlighted the error to begin with. And I really feel for him because we know how good of a shot stopper he is. What a good keeper he can be. We saw him in the World Cup. But this is the Premier League. This is a whole nother level. So consistency, and you're thrust into the spotlight. And if you're thrust into the spotlight, then you have to come up with those massive performances.
Yeah, Jesse, I kind of
I would probably, Jimmy, I would probably now
going.
sit down with the goalkeeper, right, coach, and then with the staff and talk about, okay, where are we in this? What is the direction we go now? For me, I don't think that Matt Turner warranted being benched in the first place. Of course, when you're Forest, every game is tough and points are not easy to gain and win, and you have to stay strong and you need stability in the back. I mean, this is one of the most important things. And then you have to you have to make a decision together, and it's going to be a difficult decision either way at this point. Do you keep going with them or do you make the move again? Personally, I think in the long term, you have to think long term with this decision. And I know obviously there's pressure mounting for Nottingham Forest and they're slipping down the table. But right now, if they continue this switch with the goalkeeper position, I think they're only going to cause problems for themselves. So I would right now sit down, have a good discussion with the staff, but then bring Matt Turner in with the goalkeeper coach and sit him down and say, you are our guy. You're what we need. We've got your back. Keep going. Have confidence. Be ready for the next match. Let's go again.
He doesn't have Arsenal's back line. This is Nottingham Forest. So you're not getting bailed out by William Saliba here. So knowing that you're going to be getting chances, you have to defend in a different way, a well-organized, almost pragmatic style that you can't play back to the keeper. It's just that simple.
Nottingham Forest currently in 17th in the Premier League, 5 points off the drop zone over Luton. They've lost 5 out of their last 6. They've given up 30 goals in 17 games. A lot of work to do, and hopefully they'll stick. Steve Cooper, that is the manager of the team, will stick with Matt Turner moving forward, because to Jesse's point, he did do a lot of great things, but obviously that one is what everybody's going to remember. Now, before we take our break, I want to give a shout out to Alex Zendejas, the 25-year-old who had 5 goals and 3 assists in 21 appearances for Club America this Apertura season. Just won the Apertura title over Tigres, over 2 legs, 4-1. A lot to talk about in that particular game with a whole bunch of red cards there at the very end for Tigres. We'll have to save that for another time. But this is the second time that Zendejas has won a league title. He won the Clausura in 2017 with Chivas Guadalajara. So he's won with Chivas and one with Club America. That's crazy. That's like winning one with Rangers and winning one with Celtic, or the Yankees and the Boston Red Sox, or the Celtics and the Lakers. Like, that's just insane.
Who do you think he celebrated harder with?
I don't know. That's a good question. That is a very good question. All right, we're going to take our next break. When we return, we're going to talk about the Open Cup and MLS's refusal to play in it. This one is going to have some fireworks, so don't go anywhere.
Best thing I could say is the league has been able to evolve through all of the changes that come to us, like the Club World Cup in an expanded format, like Copa America taking place here next summer, and we will adapt and figure out the right way to change. And whether that's roster changes, or whether it's participation in some tournaments and not others, or whether it's ways that we could manage the schedule to give those teams that have more schedule congestion an opportunity to have a bit more time in between games. So there's no easy answer to it, but you should know we spend as much time as you and our fans on social media spend thinking, and our coaches think about it.
That is MLS Commissioner Don Garber planting the seeds for what was going to happen. That was a week before they made the announcement, and this happened on Friday afternoon. So they clearly put it out in a news dump that they hoped that people would react to or weren't paying attention to. But the MLS is going to not have their top teams play in the U.S. Open Cup moving forward, which is an absolute shame for me in particular. This is a tournament that's for everyone. It's open to everyone. Everybody has a chance to be a part of this competition. It doesn't exist in any other competition that we have in this country. And now MLS is saying, we don't want to play in it either. And that is a real shame. We'll get into kind of the nuts and bolts about what U.S. Soccer can do to respond. But Jesse Marsch has won 4 Open Cups, I won one. What's funny though, fun fact, I beat Jesse Marsch in the 2004
Oh!
Open Cup final. so me won, Jesse 0, but that was my only Open Cup final, and Jesse's got 4 of them, so he ultimately wins. But Jesse,
that was in extra time too.
It was
goal?
golden goal. Igor Simonov off a free kick. Let's go.
Igor who?
Yes, I remember.
It doesn't matter. I got a ring, Charlie. That's all that matters. So Jesse, what's your reaction to this news? Because I take it and I get a bit emotional about it and passionate about it, because I can't believe that MLS would take these steps to say, hey, fixture congestions, too many games. But they're creating the fixture congestion with the Leagues Cup, and but give me your emotional or initial reaction. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Don Garber has made a slew of the right decisions to help this league grow. This one, though, I think is the wrong one. And maybe it's being dictated by the owners and the board of governors or whatever. But, I also believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that this is the oldest tournament in the United States.
By a long shot.
Yeah. So you're talking about, refusing the history of a longstanding tournament. And I don't know that there's precedent either in another league in the world where all of the top divisions clubs say that we're not going to play in the FA Cup or the cups, the country's cup, so I think it's the wrong decision. I think, I know there's so many teams now, and there's so many games, and there's so many tournaments, and there's lots of reasoning that you could put behind this. And I'm not saying it's easy to balance all of these things out, but for me, this has been one of the cornerstones of the way that the league and the sport has operated in our country for a long time. And it's the wrong decision for me to remove the cup.
Charlie, where are you on all of this? As someone who didn't win the Open Cup.
Yeah, thank you. It was an honor to play in this competition and not win. But, I get from them ownership standpoint who could really care less about the U.S. Open Cup because it doesn't help their pockets. They don't control it. They don't make money from it. And they're saying, why should we put our players out there just to risk injury or risk fatigue? No need. Let's get rid of it. We got the Leagues Cup. We're going to be making money. But ultimately, this is a long-term play. This is not a short-term play. This is about investing in the game at the grassroots level. This gives markets who don't get MLS teams the opportunity to play against an MLS team, the exposure for your club. Maybe you get newfound fans or because of what they saw. Maybe Chicago Fire is playing someone in Iowa or Idaho, and next thing you know, you have a whole state of kids, a whole generation of kids that want to play for the Chicago Fire for that very reason, because it was an epic game, a game that lives in their memories for a lifetime. And that's what's so great about this U.S. Open Cup. I'm sure, Jesse, I've seen some of your rosters. You mix. You play some of your starters. You play some of your up-and-coming rising stars. You play some of your rotation players, your role players. But ultimately, it's a good competition to strengthen your bench, your depth, right? As well as keeping your first-team players sharp. And I think the best part about it as a manager is navigating that, trying to make it all work with all these competitions, Champions Cup, to MLS regular season, to Leagues Cup. The best part about being a manager is trying to navigate how to have success and when to rotate and when to rest and when to start and when to give an opportunity. I think that's all about, from that side of things, as a manager with a professional club and a player, managing those expectations, those competitions for success, but also for USL and for all the amateur players in this country to have a dream to one day play against the best, play against the pros. And for a young player to say, maybe this is my ticket to a lifelong career as a professional player, right? And that's why I'm really disappointed in this decision, because if you don't care about it, then just roll out your young players or your players who are aging out, or the guys who you want to give an opportunity to, and don't play your star players. Don't pull out of the competition from your first team and not even have that opportunity. So it's disappointing.
Yeah, it's just frustrating. It just feels like they're casually discarding this particular tournament. So when we think about what U.S. soccer can do, well, as the governing body for the sport in this country, they can just deny MLS's chance at this. But I think MLS, Jesse, have tried to figure out a way legally to say, well, our MLS Next Pro teams are going to participate in it. Our younger players are going to play in it. And also another thing that we heard, I meant to mention, is that a lot of the MLS coaches took a vote and the majority of them wanted to stay in the Open Cup, but the Board of Governors were actually the ones that decided that they're going to move forward and get out of the Open Cup entirely.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see first, how does the USSF react? What kind of sanctions or what kind of legal action can they take to try to force the MLS to actually participate? Or do they lose their status as some kind of league in our country? Because I think that's tied to the status of the League Cup or the Federations Cup in every country in the world. Usually it's that the young teams around the country can't play in the Federation Cup because the first teams are playing in it. And so it's just, again, I go back to just the history of it and what it's meant to players, to teams. It's the David Goliath. It's the real essence of competition with the one knockout phase, playing at different venues. It opens the game, like Charlie said, it opens the game to more people. It gives people more access to high level play at different communities. And so, I don't know that the story's over yet, guys. I think that there may be more action to this, and that we may still not see the end of this whole idea.
So,
and what about? I mean, have we seen any fan reaction? Have fans?
They're with us.
Fans are with us. I'm with you. It's the exposure. It only grows the league, right? More fans of the game, more people will watch, more people will sign up for Apple, right? Which is, they want subscriptions. This is how you continue to grow the exposure of the league with all these tournaments like Don Garber talked about. You got Leagues Cup, you got Club World Cup, you got the World Cup, you got Copa America, you have potentially the Women's World Cup, you have the Olympics in Paris, but you have all of these major events. People are going to be talking about the sport all day ad nauseum. It's on the brain. It's everywhere. Well, guess what? What's the league doing here? What's the league up to? Well, let me sign up for a subscription because now I'm hooked. Well, if you're starting to alienate those people, guess what? People are gonna be like, I'm done with this. They don't care about the people. They don't care about growing the league. They don't care about me because I'm not maybe associated to that one club. So again, I think it's very, you got the tunnel vision on if you're just gonna block out the US Open Cup. And maybe this is some sort of tactical plan within the negotiations. Like you said, Jesse, maybe it's not done. And now they're seeing how many people care about it, and maybe something positive comes from this conversation.
Well, this is from our crack research team. They said it should be noted that MLS, and I'll put air quotes around this, plans to not have its first teams in the Open Cup. That was the wording in the release, which shows it hasn't been cleared or approved by U.S. Soccer just yet. So to you guys' point, maybe there is something in terms of negotiation about how they can work.
Yes, I like it. So we're not done yet.
We're not done yet,
It's
but they
not
obviously they drew a line in the sand or got pretty close to it. I think also of note that we should discuss, or at least put out there, is that MLS, even though they feel like they have the responsibility to grow the game in this country, their responsibility is to growing MLS. So if they can control every step of the pipeline, Leagues Cup, we're going to control that competition. Obviously, the playoffs. Now they're getting in with MLS Next Pro, which is a third division league in this country. And then MLS, the MLS Next Academy stuff. They're really controlling almost every step of the way in terms of player development and now into other competitions. And they don't want to share that with anybody else because they're only interested in growing MLS and necessarily growing the sport. It's on U.S. Soccer to grow the sport ultimately, right? That's part of their
well, it'll be, I mean, this will be,
statement.
I mean, again, I imagine if it were in England. Imagine the fan uproar, right? And so let's see how well fans will be organized and what their feelings are and their emotions about it all. And, maybe we'll see some active reactions to what they want out of the sport and what they want out of the league. And so, that's the sign of a real league, right? When the fans are really behind what they think is right and they're willing to stand up for it and they're unified and they're together. So let's see what comes of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like the Chicago Fire new logo. Everybody hated it, and they switched that thing really, really quick. All right, we're going to take our next break of Call It What You Want. When we return, we're going to get into some of MLS's new rules for 2024. We're obviously going to bid adieu to Chuck Davies, who has got to run. See you, Charlie. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you guys right after this break. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad, alongside Jesse Marsch, Charlie Davies. I think he had to run to the bathroom or something. Well, I don't know what Chuck does in his free time. He probably does something crazy. Anyway, let's talk about the new rules that the Board of Governors for MLS have decided upon for 2024. And we should say that a lot of these rules were tested last season in MLS Next Pro to great effect. Now, for us here at the Call It What You Want family, there are 5 key rule changes for the upcoming season, which include implementing an off-the-field treatment rule. So essentially, if you don't get off the field within 15 seconds, or if you're on the ground for more than 15 seconds, that will stop play, and then you have to go onto the sideline for your treatment, and then you have to be off for a minimum of 2 minutes. So there's that one. There are a few exceptions, of course. You got head injuries, goalkeeper injuries, serious medical events, and fouls resulting in cards, as those might need a little bit more time on the pitch, but they're just trying to move the game along a little bit quicker. The time substitution rule follows a similar type theme. Any player substituted must leave the field of play by any point within 10 seconds. Anywhere you are on the field, just got to get off the field. If the player fails to do that, the player coming in will need to wait 60 seconds before entering the game at the next stoppage. Ooh. In MLS Next Pro, 99.7% of more than 3,200 substitutions were able to leave the pitch within that time frame. Of course, there are exceptions for injuries and goalkeeper substitutions in that as well. So those are going to be trying to curb some of that stoppage time. What do you feel about those, Jesse?
Well, the first one could also be considered sort of an anti-diving or get up and play rule, right? So
right.
They're a little bit wonky, I would say. The minute not being able to come onto the pitch for a minute, but I don't think we'll see that. I don't think we'll see much of an impact with that. I think players will get off the pitch relatively quickly. Maybe we'll see a player or two try to act like they didn't see their number, but a minute, it's not the longest amount of time, but you don't want if the match is tight, you certainly don't want your team to be down a man for a minute.
Especially late in the game. Yeah, if you're holding on to a lead or something.
This has been a big around the world. Even when I was in the Premier League, this was a big talking point, is running time of play. And that it was decreasing in the Premier League and in a lot of places around the world. And they were always trying to think about speed of play and how to keep the game moving and how to make the game entertaining. Every sport around the world is doing some version of this. So I see the strategy here, and then we'll see how it gets put into practice.
Okay, now for this next one, as long as it's approved by the International Football Association Board, IFAB, VAR decisions will be announced by the referee to fans, both in the stadium and to the viewers on television, which feels very NFL-esque.
That feels very NFL.
Holding
Ed Hockley with the tight with the tight jersey.
Yeah, it's all of a sudden we're going to get really fit referees because they know they're going to be on camera a little bit more. This will be the first time it has been trialed in a top flight league. Obviously, the focus will be on getting VAR decisions done quickly and correctly. This is a change that will provide more insight into the decisions that are made. Also, the clocks on broadcasts and in stadiums will also now count up during stoppage time in the first and second half. So it just won't end at 45 or 90. And you're just kind of like, the ref said 2 minutes, but it's been like 5. What's happening here? So you now get to see that. And then finally, if players suffer head injuries from a collision with each other, requiring off-the-field treatment, they will only return to the match at the same time after their evaluations have been completed. So no team actually gains an advantage due to a head collision, whether one suffered a more significant head injury than another. What are you saying about these more transparent rules to have more transparency in the game?
I like the time. I like the extra time rule. I think that's good. And because obviously at home, but even when sometimes, and obviously I always have my watch when I start, but the fans in the stadium, if you're not keeping track with your own watch, it's hard to know. Is it 3 minutes yet? Is it 4? We're obviously we'll see some heavy whistling when teams are ahead or behind or whatever, when it's time to blow the whistle. But I don't see a reason why you would not show that. So that's a good rule. And the other ones, I mean, they seem logical. They seem logical.
I'm very curious. We seem to be trendsetters at times with these particular rules. I still wish that we had the 35 instead of penalty kicks, we'd have the 35-yard breakaway. You took one of those. I remember seeing a Jesse Marsch taking one of those with
here's my story. Here's my story. Is when I played for DC United, Bruce used to sub me in to take those 35-yard kicks, but he would wait until because back then the clock went down to 0, and then there was no injury time, right?
Right.
So he would wait until there'd be 10 seconds left before he would put me in. And
he must have been really good at these.
One time he waited and made me wait, and I was ready after 2 minutes left in the match, and he made me wait, and then the ball never went out, and so I didn't get into the game. And after the match, I went to Bruce and I said, do you really think I'm going to ruin the game in 15 seconds? And basically his answer was yes. That's why I don't put you in those with 2 seconds left. So
I love that.
I was a little bit of a specialist for the 35 kick. Apparently I just was not good in the run of play.
That is an unbelievable story. Oh man, I want Bruce Arena to come on to answer his side of that.
He will. One day. There is no question that he will absolutely acknowledge that story is true. He would love to tell that story. I'm sure of it.
All right, we're going to take our last break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, we got some more exciting stuff happening here in the United States in the summer of 2025. It's the FIFA Club World Cup. We're going to break down all of the news and all the info you need to know about that competition, so don't go anywhere. And now it's time for the last section of Call It What You Want. I don't have a special name for it, but I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Jesse Marsch and not Charlie Davies. He'll be joining us when we come back on December 28th. That'll be our next show because we got Christmas happening on the following Monday. Merry Christmas to everyone out there. Thank you for your support.
Merry Christmas.
And for listening. We appreciate all of that and watching, of course. So let's talk, Jesse. I teased it before the break about the FIFA Club World Cup. It is now expanding to 32 teams. It's also expanding in terms of its length. It's going to be 29 days. And it's going to begin on June 15th and finish on July 13th in the summer of 2025 in the United States. And there's going to be 32 teams, as I mentioned. You got 8 groups of 4. And then it's going to play out. Top 2 teams advance to the round of 16, and then it plays out like a World Cup. What are your thoughts on the Club World Cup overall? Maybe we should start there. I mean, I always thought it was cool, and I've been clamoring for an MLS team to get into that competition. I know that DC United did it back in the day, and the LA Galaxy won it actually in 2000. But then it took us, 20-something years for the Seattle Sounders to represent us in the Club World Cup. I wanted to see us actually compete against the Real Madrids of the world in a meaningful competition and not just some friendly where they're trying to sell tickets over here over a summer, Yes. No, I'm excited that we have some representation in the tournament. It seems big and long. And by the way, if they're doing it in the U.S., one of the things that I think Europeans don't always understand is how hot it can be in the summer in the U.S. and Europeans don't always deal so well with the heat and humidity, really. So this part physically will be very demanding, which, I think that most teams will be excited to be in the tournament, but if certainly you go a long way, that's a heavy demand. Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to see, and I'm excited for it from a fan perspective, but I can also understand the demands that are going to be on the players who are like, we got another competition to play in. Well, FIFA Pro, who I mentioned earlier, have stated at a minimum they believe that players should have an off-season break of 28 days. The new Club World Cup, though, is likely to end only a month before the start of the 25-26 season. So that is interesting. Also, in some research that they've done, published a little earlier this year, FIFPro have called for an in-season break of 14 days and says players should have at least 1 day off per week. So Jesse, keeping these mandates that FIFPro would like to see, and you've obviously managed at the highest level, do you agree with these sentiments that these players need proper rest and the ones they're suggesting?
I think the German league does it the best, where basically they take off 2 weeks around Christmas and New Year's, and it gives the players a pause. It lets them recover physically. It lets them spend time over the holidays with their families, and it just gets the balance of the season, I think, done. It works almost perfectly. You play the first round up until Christmas, then you have a break, then you come back and what they call the Hinrunde, and you play the second round where you have almost the exact same schedule to the end of the season, and it just refreshes everything. And also it gives time where when you're making transfers in that January window, it gives you a little time to integrate these players into your team with a couple practice matches before getting back into meaningful matches. So that makes sense for me. I would like to see that.
Germans and efficiency. I don't know. It's a stereotype, but it's clearly playing true in this particular instance. They've got their scheduling figured out. All right, that's it. I'm calling it a show, Jesse.
One more, Jimmy, one more.
What do you got? Final thoughts. Give it to me.
But in there, I love seeing Boxing Day.
Yeah.
So maybe it's right. I don't know. I mean,
maybe it's right after Boxing Day. Maybe you can have it both ways.
For sure.
Maybe you can have it both ways, Jesse. Yeah. Jesse wants it both ways, everybody. And we want it always here on Call It What You Want. So thank you for listening. As always, Merry Christmas again to everyone
Merry
out
Christmas.
there. We appreciate you. Make sure to follow Call It What You Want wherever you get your podcast. Take a few seconds to leave us a rating and review. And again, we really appreciate you, and we're going to see you very soon. Enjoy your holidays, enjoy your loved ones, and have a great time. Later.